Thank you for inviting us today, and I'm happy to present for Deacon Tim today. This is just a little bit about me. This is my family a couple years ago. Our oldest daughter, the only one that's married, although she still hasn't provided me with a grandchild, as I was telling Jody earlier. But we have 3 daughters all there, and then our son, and then now our son-in-law. So that was a beautiful, beautiful event. What do we do at the Catholic Foundation? Some of you work with us, as we were talking at my table, but we facilitate charitable giving for the benefit of our parishes, for the benefit of our schools, for our ministries, for Catholic charities. The seminary, we have funds for the seminary. We were started almost 28 years ago now, because we're in November, by Archbishop Chaput to be a legally separate entity from the Archdiocese. So we're a fiduciary intermediary for the Archdiocese, as we have funds for the seminary, Catholic charities, almost every parish in our Archdiocese. But those funds are legally separate and therefore protected. So if we were to have problems in our Archdiocese, if it would have to go into bankruptcy, our funds are legally protected. And that's happened in the Archdiocese of Minnesota several years ago. It was litigated through 3 appellate courts, and they were not allowed to touch those funds. So that becomes very important right now. The Archdiocese of New Orleans is in bankruptcy, and I think San Diego. So that's awful, but that's why we were created. Now, we do a lot more than that now. We invest the funds we have. Right now for this year, and I'm probably jumping ahead from a slide, but our funds are at 14.1% for the year, so we make that money for the church. So that's awesome. As I said, we are the charitable partner, and our giving arm is mostly in the area of plan giving. And what is plan giving? That is gifts in your wills, trusts, beneficiary designations. We also facilitate for many parishes gifts of stock, the IRA donations, and then, as I said, the estate. And it says estate administration. We don't do the estate administration for individuals, but for the parish or Catholic charities or one of the other entities like the seminary. So I'll tell a little bit of those stories in a little bit. And I said the legal protection. Types of gifts. I hone in on beneficiary designations. A, they're very easy to do. And B, they're usually retirement assets, which when we get older, that's usually our biggest asset is retirement assets. They are federally income taxable to your other beneficiaries, but not to charity. So if you're going to leave a percentage beyond your lifetime in your estate type planning, that is a really good vehicle to do it in because it is taxable to your other ones, to your other beneficiaries. Like IRAs, you only have 10 years to take that out, your children, and they're taxed on that as they take it out. But charity is not. Sometimes I have to educate when I do the estate administration for a gift. Kind of quick story, I was working with Nationwide on an annuity gift, and we aren't taxed for that, and it was going to a parish. But the young man that I spoke to was certain that the tax they took out was correct. And he wouldn't let me say a sentence. Well, I hadn't closed my door, and I have kind of a voice that, projects anyway. Well, I was getting aggravated, and then they were laughing because they could hear me. And I was like, would you let me speak? He wouldn't. And ma'am, I'm 1,000% sure that those taxes are supposed to come out. Well, I was 1,000% sure they weren't. But I realized there was no reason to argue with this. He just didn't know. And so I asked for a supervisor, got her, and she's like, well, I think you're right. No, I know I'm right? But she called me back the next day, and she was very nice. But that's the thing. Large brokerage firms do not educate their lower level staff, who are the people that answer the phones or the first line people. And so a lot of times I have to educate them. But that's not something that your parish business manager usually knows. And we do that for the parishes. So that's something that's my job, my hat right now. Life insurance, if you have life insurance and you have children or other beneficiaries, that's not taxable to them. If you don't, or you have a whole life policy, you can get a tax advantage now. And some people have it paid off, they just don't need it anymore, and they will go ahead and gift it and make the Catholic Foundation the owner and the beneficiary, and then ask us to send that to their parish or other entities when they pass. So that's also a good thing to leave. Beneficiary deeds. So if you have a home and some people don't have other people they want to leave it to, they don't have any children, they will leave that in the form of a beneficiary deed. It works just like retirement assets, life insurance. Brendan probably knows that from being a realtor. I'm sure he does. So that passes to us. It's very simple to do. We do an affidavit, have the death certificate, and then the Catholic Foundation owns the house. We sell the house. The funds then are put where the donor designated those funds be put. So that's also an easy way to leave a gift. And then there's the normal, what people think of, your wills, your trust. And since you didn't have an attorney presentation first, and I am an attorney, we were talking at my table. So a will controls at death, okay? A trust you think of as an empty box. And that empty box you fill with your assets, but you can control beyond the grave. Like, for example, my trust says my kids can't have their money until they're 30 because hopefully by then my son will have his whole brain intact. Sorry, guys. But he's 27, he's getting there, but if we died tomorrow, I don't want him inheriting just this huge sum. My girls, they're better with their money, right? Just my kids, not speaking to anybody else, but that's just the way it is. So you can control, you fill it with your assets and they're titled in the trust. Your home, even your car can be. So that's the difference between a will and a trust. And they control over here, but your beneficiary designations control over here. So if you have your IRAs and you want them as part of your trust, you actually have to title them and make the trust your beneficiary. If you have a will, you wouldn't do that. You don't want them going to the will. So that's just kind of like my short attorney lesson. Other real estate, we do take other real estate. We've had several real estate gifts, like one I'm working on now. We own property in New Mexico. A donor gave us 2 years ago. He thought that the city was going to buy it like within 6 months, but 2 years later, we're almost at closing. And he's then putting that money into his charitable giving fund, donor advised fund, and then he has things that he's promised that money is going to go to. So that it can also work for a charitable gift annuity, real estate. So donate the real estate. It has a low cost basis. Maybe you've had it for years and years, and you don't want to be taxed on all that money. So you donate the real estate, we sell it, and then we can do a gift annuity or put it in your donor advised fund. So we do that kind of thing as well. And I just mentioned the gift annuities and then the appreciated stocks. Beneficiary designations also, they bypass probate. Okay, if you have a will, you go to probate. In Colorado, probate's not that expensive. If you're in California, you don't go through probate. It's hugely expensive and everybody there should have a trust. Here, it depends upon your situation, whether a trust or a will works for you. A lot of times I will meet with potential benefactors, donors, and we'll talk over their situation and I'll say, well, probably a will and a beneficiary designation are right for you, but here's a list of attorneys that I work with. I had a meeting yesterday with an attorney that she had met with somebody from a presentation, and we discussed what she wanted to do and the best vehicles to do it. So I will work with the attorneys. As I said, those are a great way to achieve your giving beyond your lifetime. And then I thought the next one, I'll show you how you then tell us how to give that gift. But as I said, why the Catholic Foundation? That legal separation, the ease of change. You just tell us with a simple form where you want that gift to go, and you don't have to go back and change your trust or your will every time maybe you change a parish or you learn of a new charity that you want to give to. We also invest your parish funds Catholic charities, the seminaries, in a morally responsible investment pool. We use Innovest, who is owned and operated by a Catholic CEO and president, and they go around. Rich Todd, if any of you know him, he goes around the country speaking on the morally responsible investment pool. So we don't invest in certain pharmaceuticals and other things that are against our Catholic beliefs. Something we do annually, and I need to update this slide, we contribute, now it's $10,500 to 20 different schools. Something my team and I, which is myself, Deacon Tim, and Christine, we've been going around to various schools this fall presenting checks. And we have that big check that I didn't like to use, but I realize now the kids really like it. Christine did start that last year, and I have continued the tradition this year because their little eyes get all big when they see $10,500. And actually, I found out the priests really like that too. So as you see there, I am using the big check this year. That's at Wheat Ridge at St. Peter and Paul School, and they're ran by Carmelite nuns. Just a great school. They're a STEM school. But yeah, those are some of the kids there, and it's just a blessing. I mean, how many of us get to go to Mass as part of our job? So here is what I thought was the next slide. This is how you tell us where you want those funds that go to the Catholic Foundation to go when you pass away. And we take this very seriously. So I updated this with Our Lady of Mount Carmel Fund. And then these are just examples, but you can make these whatever you like, as long as it's not against our Catholic beliefs. And we do take that seriously as well. As far as we have a grants coordinator that does research those now, and it's surprising how many organizations that you would think are fine that give to Planned Parenthood or other things that it's not their mission, and I'm not sure why they do it, but my eyes have been enlightened lately because he enjoys the research. And I have on here as an example the Catholic Foundation's General and Unrestricted Fund, because that's how we survive. We do not require that you give us a percentage, but we ask for 5 or 10% just because it can be a lot of work to fight with Nationwide or to sell a house and all the things that go with that. So we don't take a fee for that. We just get back our expenses, and so we ask but not require that. If you leave a gift through us, this is never why someone does it, but we have our Holy Family Legacy Society, and we do have an event once a year in appreciation. Archbishop always does a mass. And we have a dinner. It's very nice. But the biggest thing we do is we pray for our donors every day. And on their birthday or their date of death, we pray. We actually say their names. We pray every day. I was in prayer this morning with our team. During COVID, we started using an 800 line to pray. So even when I'm driving to Fort Collins, I'm on the phone praying with our team. So it's really a cool thing that we do. And we do that every day. And then we also send mass intentions when you pass to your parish. Funny story, we had a donor that died in my parish. That part, not funny story. Funny story is another donor that I work with on our parish was all aggravated because he couldn't get all his mass intentions in that he wanted because we took up 30. He didn't like that. It was funny. But the lady that passed away, it was a beautiful gift. And she had a type of cancer where she was totally a quadriplegic and could not speak. But when I met with her, she still could portray what she wanted. And gosh, I met with her like in the spring, and she unexpectedly died in July. So the gift came to fruition. But her husband, it gave him great joy to know that gift was coming, and he wanted it in her name. Like he didn't want his name on it. So that was neat. And he brought her this year to our evening of appreciation. And they stayed later. And they were with the donor that was complaining about the mass intention. So that's kind of funny. That's who they sat with. But she got to experience that and got to go to our evening of appreciation before she passed away. So I was really glad. So that's just a current giving story. This is a parish. It isn't the actual parish, but it does look like the parish in Sterling. When I first came here, I think it was the next year, a donor passed away in Sterling, and he left a much larger gift than what they anticipated. And that Jacob Maury Fund has been an amazing gift for their parish, and they hadn't had to use the money until this year, and now they're having a hard time making budget, and that gift is just huge. And then we have another one that was from Our Lady of Grace Parish. It's in Northwest Denver. This gift is more than their offertory in a year. I think like 3 times more. With it, they have put, first of all, the priest debated for about 1.5 years what he was going to do, and then he ordered stained glass windows. By the time he paid for those, the portfolio had made the money, so he didn't touch the principal of the gift. And then since that time, he's put in new chandeliers, he's added a ramp, he's done some other stuff to the parking lot. Still has not touched that principal, and it's almost $100,000 more through the portfolio. So we invest that money too, and so that's a really neat story. And Father Felix loves us, obviously. Why, But the lady that left this gift died earlier than expected, and she lived very frugally. So they thought it was going to be a $10,000 gift. So for it to be this much was an amazing. He cried when he found that out. IRA charitable rollover. I don't know if any of you are even old enough here, but 70 and a half is when you can start gifting through your IRA to charity. So it's called your qualified minimum distribution. And usually when I present, I find someone in the audience that is taking the money, putting it in their checking account, and then gifting to their parish. So they're getting taxed on it. But with your qualified charitable distribution, you give it straight to the organization, and then it doesn't raise your taxable income. So if you have grandparents, if you have parents that are doing that, my mother-in-law, I found out this past year, was doing that. She's like, oh yeah, I take out this much for the taxes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do this for a living. But I'm the daughter-in-law, and she's in Pennsylvania. Anyway, she's gonna do it right next year. And we will do that for you if you want, but you can send it straight to your parish. Yes? You cannot do it until you're under 70 and a half. And people have to take their mandatory charitable distribution RMD at 73 right now. That's changed a lot since I've been doing this, but it's 73. But you still can start taking your qualified charitable distribution at 70.5, because a lot of people have a lot of distributions to give, so they start earlier. Yes?
If you have a deceased RMA, but you have to take money out of every year, then that's 70 and a half. Still, same problem.
If you have somebody else's?
Yeah, my mom.
Your mom's. So I do not know. I will have to check for you. I am not sure. Anybody here financial planner? No? I will find out, because I'm not positive on that. I know I know you only have 10 years to pull it out. Yeah, I know that. But can you give it? I'm not sure. I'm always happy to say I don't know, and I'll check. Donor advised funds. Those are what I called and referred to a few minutes ago as a charitable giving fund. You put money in, you get the tax deduction at the time. And then we put that in our portfolio. It can grow money. I like that, because then I get to give more money. My husband and I have a donor advised fund. The best assets are appreciated stock, because then you're negating your gain with the stock, and then you're also getting your charitable deductions. So that's kind of a double thing to have. It's easy for record keeping, because instead of your parish and then Catholic Charities and whoever else you give to having all these different statements, you just have one statement at the end of the year. So it's very easy for giving. You cannot put IRA money into a donor advised fund, though. That's an IRS rule. And some people name them like different scripture verses. They want to be anonymous, right? So that's also an easy way to be anonymous, is through a donor advised fund, because we send that money, then the organization will send us the thank you, and then we send it on to the donor. Kind of a cool story. I had a donor she didn't grow up rich. She lived in LaPorte. She sold her farm, made a lot of money on her farm. She had 9 children, his, hers, and they had twins together because both their spouses died early in life. Her husband died in a plane crash. Worked hard her whole life. So she donated a very large portion of that to a donor advised fund, and she had cancer. So she ended up living a couple years, and Rose loved getting to give that money. She gave to her hometown in Nebraska. She gave $100,000 to her parish, $100,000 to the other parish in town. Like, it gave her such joy to give this money over the end of her life in the last 2 years. And then her children don't really practice, didn't really know about this fund for a while, I guess. Not real thrilled when they found out about it. She knew that would be the case. So she had a priest and a deacon as her successor advisors to finish out this fund for her. So I met with the one priest last week, and he was like, that was so fun. We just gave out $120,000. And but he knew her, and he was like, well, she loves kids, so let's give to these 2 camps. She loves this, and what didn't she give to? I had the list of what she'd given to in the last 2 years. So that was a really different, unique donor advised fund. I worked with her. My husband has been with me on her farm, and her dog bit me one time when I was there. Like, I had this wonderful history with Rose. So she really lived life to the fullest, and she really enjoyed getting to give money at the end of her life. This is our team. I think most of you know Christine. We hired her over a year ago. She moved from Ohio. Deacon Tim Kinney, who's at Risen Christ, who's been in our archdiocese for 25 years. He and Deacon Steve actually were in the diaconate at the same time. And I've been here 7.5 years. My previous work was at West Virginia University at their foundation, doing what I do here, but I didn't get to pray every day or go to Mass as part of my job, not at a university. And now I lead our development team, and then Deacon Steve leads the foundation.